So that's the end of my presentation. I really want to thank, special thanks to Dr. David Anderson, who made this possible, and Heather Caton, who basically also asked me to do this, and her influence allowed me to put some crystals in there, because I know Heather was very interested in crystals, and also I know Dr. Anderson has programs going on with crystals, so I want to make sure those are in the presentation. I also want to thank NASA, because I work for NASA as a consultant, and without their support, none of my work would really be possible. I have a general website that shows my art. I'm an artist, and I do cool-looking space paintings and just abstract art in general, and all kinds of art, really. And my scientific work are both at my site, edbelbruno.com. And there's my book, Fly Me to the Moon. And I have a company, my company, which deals with NASA, and it's got its own website, and that website is spaceroutes.com. So I'm going to end there, and it's been a real pleasure to do this talk. And again, I want to thank Dr. Anderson for the honor of addressing this audience. Thank you.
Dr. Belbruno, thank you so much. Just, if it's possible, just one more quick question. Could you tell us a little bit more about the mission and vision of innovative orbital design, and maybe any updates on your work with low energy pathways?
Yeah, my company actually, when I found the route to the moon back in 1991, that rescued the Japanese spacecraft, which is described in my book on this last slide, I ended up making a patent, actually, on that route in space, and I made a lot of other patents, and based on those patents, I was able to get some investors interested, and eventually I made a little company, which is basically me and a couple other people, really, and mainly just me and my web designer right now, and of course you need a lawyer. So what I did was I put a company together, which you can easily do in the United States, and I incorporated it. It's called Innovative Orbital Design, Inc. And basically, once you do that, then you can actually call yourself a small business. And when you call yourself a small business, then you can compete for research grants with the big agencies like NASA. So you're competing with Lockheed and Boeing and all these other big JPL, and you're right up there with them because you're also a little company. Now, I just have 1, 2, and 3 people, but nevertheless, it puts me in the same ballpark. Now, in my case, I have patents which people like, and I also have the knowledge of how to make low-energy pathways in space that get spacecraft to the moon for a lot less fuel than normally would be required. And for example, the route I used for the Japanese spacecraft in 1991 is now a very well-known route in aerospace engineering, and it's called a low-energy transfer to the moon, or it's called a weak stability boundary transfer. Another term for it is Lagrange point transfer. There's a number of terms, but the point is it's a valuable technology to know how to do that, because this transfer to the moon can actually double the payload you can put in orbit around the moon for the same price as you can do on the regular routes. The regular 3-day route that takes 3 days to get there, which was devised back in 1920s, my route takes 3 months, or the route that I devised takes 3 months, but you could put twice the payload. So if you're putting payloads around the moon, you have to keep in mind it costs $1 million a pound to bring anything to the moon. So if you can bring twice as much there, then that's valuable. So because of that, my company has the charter of supplying the know-how and the technology to describe for other people how to make the route. But because I'm a theoretical mathematician, there's also an interest with me which has nothing to do really with applications. It's really what's the theoretical structure of the chaos associated with these low energy pathways and more, which is generally what's the mathematical structure of that. So I also research theoretical mathematics of that, which is really a mathematics problem, and I publish my results in mathematics journals. And finally, the techniques that work for pathways to the moon and other places like Jupiter and Saturn also work in fields of astronomy, not for spacecraft, but for comets. So, and also on the origin of our own moon. I have a theory on that as well, which these techniques also can be applied to. So the techniques for the route to the moon also can be applied in theoretical mathematics and also in the field of astronomy. So I'm now actually applying my work to black holes, which is a brand new area of research I'm getting involved in. Gigantic black holes which may collide due to galaxies have black holes in them, and we can see, astronomers can see entire galaxies that may be colliding, and the black holes are forcing the collision. So it turns out, I'm finding out now, that the work I've done on low energy pathways in space and the theory behind that may actually be applicable to galaxy scale black holes, which is very, very interesting. And all of this is done under my small company. So you could consider it to be a high-level research company.
Fascinating, fascinating. And I know you're pressed for time. Just one last question.
Yeah.
What is the relationship between the wonderful work you're doing in mathematics and computer science and your career in art? And what is new with Ed Belbruno, the artist? What's on the horizon that we might look forward to?
Well, that's a really good question. As my field, my interest in art, actually, it's very interesting. I started painting. I did my first oil painting at 7 years old. And I went out, no one told me how to do this. My mother was shopping one day, and as a 7-year-old kid, I wandered into a hobby store, and I just instinctively bought a canvas, turpentine, linseed oil, and oil paint, and brushes. And I went home, and the first painting I ever did was a picture of one of the moons of Saturn looking at Saturn. So it was looking at Saturn in the sky for one of its moons. Now, I did this at 7 years old with no one told me to do this, so I have a natural interest and talent in art that goes way before my interest in mathematics and the sciences. The sciences came much later, and I had to work hard for that. But the art just came as a natural thing. So I always knew that someday I would go into art professionally, but I'd have to do the science first because it's easier to make a living that way. And I'm now at the point where I've built up quite a considerable portfolio of 150 paintings, and I have an art agent, and I have, for example, I just had a show in New York City a year and a half ago at, you probably heard of this place called Lincoln Center. That's where the Metropolitan Opera House is located. In fact, they sponsored a show for me at Lincoln Center. I've recently just been on, maybe you've heard of NPR Public Radio. They have a program called Studio 360, and it highlights the new artists today, and it's an international radio program. It goes all over the world. They feature my art in January. And I also was featured in the National Art Club in New York City in January as well. So I have a lot of things going on. Currently I'll be having a show in Princeton in October of some brand new paintings I've done, which are abstract expressionist paintings of chaos. It looks like they look a lot like Van Gogh type of brushstrokes, but the themes are nothing what he would ever do, and they're basically I can't describe them. You have to see them. Unfortunately, they're not online yet because they're so new. But I'll be having a bunch of those, a whole batch of those in October. And before those, I started painting the microwave radiation painting of the microwave radiation of the universe, which was emanated when the universe blew up in a Big Bang explosion 15 billion years ago. The remnants of that is microwave radiation. So I paint that, and it comes across as abstract expressionist art, which it's very much like Jackson Pollock, very, very abstract. So I do very abstract pieces, but I also do, my earlier work was very realistic. But it's interesting question Dr. Anderson asked, because I have found that when I do the art, it has nothing whatsoever to do with the mathematics or science. In fact, if I start thinking logically like I would in the science field, I can't paint anything. The paintings come out terrible. So I have to completely turn off the science way of thinking and the math way of thinking and just think like an artist, which is completely creative. On the other hand, if I'm doing scientific work which requires logical, deductive reasoning and mathematical work, then I do not do that from an artistic point of view, because the artistic point of view does not use deductive reasoning. It uses a completely different kind of reasoning. In fact, it doesn't use reasoning. It uses something else, which I don't want to get into here, but they're both radically different. So I feel that I'm sort of two people. One of me is an artist which thinks that way, and the other side of me is a mathematician scientist that thinks that way. But my artwork is definitely gaining attention, and I've recently sold several pieces in the past few months for a lot of money, which I never thought I could ever get that, but for really quite a bit of money, and because of that, it's freed me up a bit to do more art. So I've gotten a new apartment, and my level of living has gone up a bit because I'm able to sell these paintings. So I do two careers, but the artwork is definitely something I'm very excited moving into more and more. And maybe someday you may see my art in the news. Who knows?
Well, Dr. Belbruno, I have to say we like both halves of your person that you bring together, and it's quite an inspiration for the youth to see somebody who knows how to balance science and art together in their life. And just once again, on behalf of all the participants here, the instructors, the coordinators, the World Genesis Foundation, and the United Nations, thank you once again for joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you. It's been a real blast. I look forward to doing it again.
Okay, all the best.
Yeah, bye.